Welcome, 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 lovely brothers and sisters. Welcome to the second part of the Isis and the Bloodlines of Cain, Abel, and Seth. I decided to do directly the second part so that the people can watch first part two and directly first part one and then directly part two. And also, my schedule for today is quite busy, and now I have the time, and my local environment is quite peaceful right now. So that is why I decided to do directly after part one, the second part. Um, I am reading from the Story of Isis book. You can see the front cover of this book placed in the picture. It is a book that is all about the war on bloodlines and is written by Wes Penre. Um, Let us start. The importance of our physical body. In the between quotation marks spiritual community and in parts of the New Age movement, we are told to neglect our Homo sapiens bodies as much as possible because they are of the matrix and not important. However, after having done deeper research and come to new conclusions, I see this as false. After everything we have discussed so far in this chapter, we can see that the body itself contains Orion DNA and Isis spirit, and it is very psychic. So, this makes you the question, why then is the New Age promoting this? Well, the promotion probably because we know that the New Age movement is deliberately set up to derail and distract us humans from finding our truth and remembering of whom we are. So, of course, it serves someone's agenda. But who is that someone? Well, Marduk and Enki, the ones whom are pulling the strings here on earth. As much as we need to connect to the spirit realm, we also need to attend to our body, communicate with it, nurture it, and listen to it. It is a living being and there to assist us in the 3D realm. It gives us signals and cues, but people often ignore them. It warns us of danger and it tells us what to do in certain critical situations. So the body even has its own spiritual emotions. If we neglect it, it will get sick, deteriorate, and possibly die prematurely. Between quotation marks, thinking that it fills little purpose. So our sapiens body is our connection to spirit in the physical world. Thus, spirit and the physical body become interconnected and are just two sides of the same thing. Therefore, it was needed for Isis to breathe her life force into Adam so our divine spirit could anchor into a body functioning as a spirit attachment and connection to the physical realm. Cain's bloodline and Enki's mutiny. When Orion decided to terminate the human experiment about 10,000 years ago, when Noah's flood happened, Enki ferociously protested, claiming Homo sapiens to be, between quotation marks, his children. However, eventually he must give in, but told Noah in secret to so-called build an ark which was basically an airborne ship, not a boat, to survive the flood. It says in the Bible that Noah's family was the last of the Cain bloodline, which Enki wanted to preserve since it contained his dominant DNA. Thus, Noah and his family survived, and Enki also hijacked many human three-unit composites to continue the experiment. And three-unit composites refers to spirit, body, soul, and mind in one. In secret, after the flood, as mentioned earlier, they are us, the three-unit composites who were not allowed to leave the Earth construct and go home to Orion during the flood. Noah's three sons then became the three branches of the Enki-Isis-Ninurta bloodline, surviving the deluge. Enki did some additional tampering, of course, making Ham's offspring black, as briefly mentioned in the Orion book, volume 2. We have learned from the Bible that it was the Cain bloodline that was terminated in the flood, which is not true. The Cain bloodline is what survived the flood. Although it didn't wipe out all people on earth, it was the Seth bloodline that was succumbed, the dominant human bloodline before the flood. There were those who survived, e.g., the Native Americans and the Aborigines in Australia, both survivors from Lemuria. Aborigine means original inhabitant in Latin. It was a point in time Lucifer's rebellion took place, and Enki disobeyed orders and created his own experiment, which became the matrix we are contained in. Isis and Mother Goddess in the matrix. After the flood, Enki, in secret, terraformed the earth once more, and he created a physical dome around the planet so no physical being could enter or leave this realm. Eventually, when he had created new bodies for the three-unit composites to inhabit, the Homo sapiens sapiens, the modern man. He also created a frequency fence, a grid around the planet so no non-physical beings could enter or leave without Enki's permission. Many Syrians, calling themselves the Calm Kings, and a few other rebelling star beings from different star systems followed Enki to the new Earth and are still here today. The grid comprises our human soul energy that is captured in a revolving energy grid surrounding the planet. This keeps humans together as a mass consciousness, making us all connected on an energetic soul level. This has trapped us all within the grid system. Moreover, Enki, between quotation marks, tilted the planet, which had consequences. One being that It created amnesia for us humans because it put us within a denser, more solid frequency range. This also made our planet difficult to find for those of the greater universe. Thus, the rebels cloaked not only us humans from the outside universe, but these overlords could also hide within this system behind all the barriers and layers they created. So Orion discovered too late what Enki had done, and he and his cohorts now had what they considered the, between quotation marks, perfect system. And so, where they could have privacy to hijack the entire original experiment and create their own by tracking us humans into inhabiting this new, denser Homo sapiens. As usual, we were tricked by sex. And because of this, Enki is now also, for the third time, setting up a new Atlantis era on the bottom, what is known as America. So now we get a deeper understanding of why the things are happening in America, because they are doing their uttermost best to create there a new Atlantis era. And Enki hopes right now, of better said, Enki hopes that this time the entire Atlantis can succeed because this is connected with the singularity and the metaverse. This means that Enki was already trying to create this with the second Atlantis and was already starting to create the singularity slash and thus metaverse, better said, in the second Atlantis era. So, lovely brothers and sisters, we are in a repetition of history, and this time the fallen gods, Enki and Marduk, they are now hoping to succeed their plan. So it is on us that we start to remember whom we are and that we start to see ourselves as children of the creatrix of Orion universe, who is the mother goddess Sophia. We are a spark of her. We are royal. We have been gifted with spirit and thus with a spirit body. So we need to turn the tables, and we can do this as soon as we start to remember whom we are and also start seeing the things for what they truly are, and have ourselves completely disconnected from mainstream media, because mainstream media is only telling fabricated stories to distract us and to derail us and to make us believe things that are completely nonsense. So you need to find truth, information in a different way. And so I am telling you, make connection with your spirit and ask your spirit to help you find information that can help you to remember whom you are, so that you can turn the tables in your own life, and through this you can radiate this and can make a change. And this is very much of great importance right now, because as we see, the agendas are rolling out on a fast pace. They are in an extreme hurry because of one thing. They are suffering depletion due to the many holes that are already in the matrix. And this matrix is in us. So the more we start to remember whom we are, the more holes we create in our own inner matrix. And because of this, the outer matrix also becomes a Swiss cheese. And this creates depletion for Enki and for Marduk and all their cohorts whom are working in togetherness with them. In previous work, I have argued that we reincarnate into our own immediate bloodline each time we return here. We have no own immediate bloodline. So we have no choice in that matter. So this gives also the idea that in actuality, if we constantly reincarnate in the same bloodline, which means in actuality that we are constantly reborn in the same family setting, family unit. This exact procedure is important to the overlords, so they can keep track of us, but also so they feel they have given us a so-called chance to evolve, all per the contract they have, quotation marks, signed with Orion, promising to let us evolve and graduate to return to Orion. Well, this promise is completely broken and have become void because the overlords are not doing what they have promised. Every time we die, most souls go through the tunnel of light and end up in the overlord's recycling center. The astral workers whose job it is to recycle us into new bodies, wipe our memories clean, destroy the astral body that contains the memories of our immediate past life, and give us a new astral body free from any memories, with a clean slate, and shoot us down into a new body of our own previous bloodline, E.G, into our own grand or great grandchild's body. We are born without memories, with full soul amnesia, but we inherit some memories, skills and experiences that we retrieve in new lifetimes, all running through our DNA from our direct ancestral lineage. Therefore, certain talents or traits are inherited. We create a new personality each lifetime based on our upbringing and our environment, forming experiences that influences our choices in life. This is very cruel, and even though we might make minimal progress from life to life, it is at best 2 steps forward and 1 step backward, or 1 step forward and 2 steps backward, depending on the individual's responses to the environment and choices in life. Sometimes it is just backward, depending on how we live our lives, where each lifetime becomes the foundation for our next incarnation. Thus, we bring our actions with us into our next life through our genetics. This alone determines our evolution or devolution, respectively, not our direct soul memories, which are destroyed together with the astral body. If we are to believe in karma, We create it with our actions in each lifetime by leaving our thoughts, actions, and intentions embedded in the DNA of our bloodline. So when we incarnate the next time, the choices we made in our previous lives influences us in our new life. If we were serial killers the last time, that would greatly impact our behavior in this life. This is also why the Pleiadians, channeled by Barbara Marciniak, said that what we do in this lifetime also affects our entire ancestral line because our actions always alter our DNA along the lines of time, good or bad. It was never supposed to be this way. This is the overlord's solution to keep us here in the matrix as long as they deem necessary, but still keeping their word, letting us evolve. Well, this evolvement is not really evolvement. All right, let us discuss the non-player characters. What are they? I would suggest that here in the matrix, all Homo sapiens bodies have Isis, between quotation marks, dragon breath in them as a part of the blueprint. Yet we often hear people talk about non-player characters, NPCs. So who are allegedly spiritless? I believe they exist non-spirited beings occupy many human bodies, and they are of two kinds. From what I can see, one, two unit composites, soul minds without spirit bodies, using matrix sapiens bodies. These beings got trapped in this matrix and caught up in the recycling system, as discussed in The Orion book, volumes 1 and 2, and also in the Wes Penre papers. They are not non-player characters in the sense the term is normally used in the alternative community, but they are not spirited either. Besides the sprinkle added to the human body, nor are they players that count in the bigger scheme of things. The real non-player characters, I believe, are two human bodies possessed by an artificial soul with an artificial mind, created with AI, with synthetic consciousness. What does this imply? I would suggest the overlords insert an artificial soul and an artificial mind in certain bodies, i.e., an astral body, letting no real two-unit composites or three-unit composites inhabit them. They become truly artificial intelligence, so AI, restricted to operating only here in the matrix. There is no true consciousness in them. They are the real NPCs, or the so-called background people. These beings cannot evolve. They are 100% overlord run programs, biological robots, or also known as inverted cyborgs. By that I mean the body is biological and the soul mind is AI, contrary to the cyborgs being created these days, where the body will be half machine and half biological, housing our three-unit composites, making us cyborgs. It might be incorrect to say they have no true consciousness at all, though, because the human body which they are attached to has Isis' breath of spirit in them. The non-player characters have only one life, and when their human bodies die, these souls, astral bodies slash avatars, are completely destroyed and new ones are created, shot down, and forced into another human body. Some people who have deep studied narcissism and psychopathy can notice the similarities between them and AI. They seem to run completely on a program. This idea comes from psychologists and life coaches who are not even alternative researchers. I believe they are correct. True narcissists who can be diagnosed with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, or psychopathy, malignant narcissism, or APD, antisocial personality disorder, may often be type 2 NPCs sent down here to traumatize the spirited humans, such as ourselves. They are copycats with no true minds of their own. This also explains why we see the same scripts and features and traits being rolled out in each and every narcissistic relationship. However, they are brilliant when it comes to mimic human behavior, even emotions, and use those against us to lead us astray and to traumatize us. So the overlords, and thus Enki and Marduk, do everything to have us 24/7 traumatized. Yeah? We see more and more narcissism in our society today than ever before. This is because more NPCs are incarnated into our realm now than perhaps ever before in history. The ratio in favor of NPC is greater rather than that of spirited humans. I would argue narcissists are famous for changing the personality of their targets, and the targets, spirited humans, whom are also known as supply in the terminology of a narcissist, become more and more like them. So this is one of the main reasons that I also presented these videos about cosmic narcissism. And I would highly recommend you to see these live book readings too, all about cosmic narcissism. So they can possibly never become true narcissists because they are spirited with true consciousness. But narcissism runs on a gradient scale from, let's say, 1 to 10, but only a 10 could be an NPC if my theory is correct. Even a 9 is still a spirited 3-unit conscious, 3-unit composite, sorry, who can recover, albeit unlikely so. And sometimes they may be non-spirited and be 2-unit composites. An NPC has no genuine thoughts and cannot genuinely think on their own. They copy their environment, so we think they are so-called real, and they can therefore appear extremely intelligent, even brilliant. Some of them reach lofty positions in society. They lack true emotions, empathy, and compassion because they are not real. There is no genuine consciousness. It is a machine. Therefore, psychologists scratch their heads wondering where psychopaths come from. Many of them do not seem to have an abusive childhood or any other signs of abuse that could have created such complicated inverted people. Not even in their family history can such traits be traced. So I suggest these people are inserted NPCs from birth. Those who are not narcissists or psychopaths are the so-called NPC-based background people. These are not necessarily abusive, but they are still AI, completely grounded in the physical world and cannot conceive of spiritual evolution or true self-healing. They are the ones who ridicule everything that cannot be perceived with the five senses, grinding and shaking their heads when we try to educate them. They are purely physical and cannot be anything else. These beings are probably here to, and here it comes, discourage us from exploring what is outside the box. We all have encountered them since they are in the majority. They usually do not believe in an afterlife because they do not have one. They are non-player characters and artificial. Some of them pretend to be religious or believe in life after death, but there is no depth to it and just a way to adapt to their environment so they can fit in. Yeah. ISIS trapped. Enki, as the genetic scientist he is, went to great lengths to keep us confined here. He created something we call the matrix. Many people think the matrix is the earth with all that exists here. But the essential matrix is this modern human body. As soon as the three-unit composites enters the body with each incarnation, our perceptions of reality become extremely limited to only five senses. During the Atlantis era and earlier, we had many more perceptions and could experience a wide range of the electromagnetic spectrum in these bodies. We are restricted to perceive the tiny spectrum of visible light, which is only 4% of the universe. With technology, Enki turned off 96% of our DNA, and then they called that DNA our junk DNA. So this is how they have fooled us, yeah? Which is the building block of existence, making it possible for a being to experience the fullness of the greater universe. Scientists call the inactivated DNA, here it comes, what I've said already, junk DNA. So this is how they are fooling us and making us falsely believe that we are just two-strand DNA beings. And I again am saying here that the double helix, why is it a double helix? Because the double helix is in actuality forming a block, a lock. It locks us into this matrix system. So we do not have junk DNA at all. They called it as such, so we would not be inspired to make our search or being encouraged to make connection with the rest of our DNA strands, which is, of course, nonsense. The human body is a biological computer. The human three-unit composite is a bio-computer with the brain as the circuit board, a literal circuit board with its blueprint in the astral body. Once we are hooked within these bodies, we live in a simulation. So those people who have the questions around, do we live in a simulation? Yes, we do. A hologram of sorts, and the brain decodes the electrical impulses from the outside according to how the body is programmed and limited to perceive the outside universe. We live in an illusion. And not until we have an out-of-body experience, OBE, or a near-death experience, NDE, can we move outside the matrix and into the astral, which is an intermediary zone between the, in quotation marks, physical and the non-physical greater universe outside the grid, which is known as Orion. Whether Isis voluntarily followed Enki and Marduk into the third construct is uncertain. All we know is that she did, and here she created new bloodlines with both Enki and Marduk, explained in my previous work, but particularly in the Wes Penre papers and the Orion book, volume 2. The first bloodline she created was with Enki, and when her father, Prince Enlil, became aware that Isis had been raped, he got so incredible furious that he castrated Enki and cast him out of Orion. That was the end of the classical story of Lucifer's rebellion, which started immediately after the flood. Enlil didn't only castrate his brother literally, from what I understand. The word castrate can also mean to deprive of vitality, strength, or effectiveness. Although he apparently did castrate his brother physically in the Rigel star system, as discussed in the Wes Penre papers. The fourth level of learning that would only have stopped him so long as he was incarnated in that current body. But Enlil made sure it cut deeper than that. Wes Penre, was told he put what is called curse on Enki, most likely castrating his astral body as well, after he threw him out of Orion and imprisoned him in the Abzu/hell, where Queen Ereshkigal rules, by keeping Enki in containment in the lowest regions of the matrix. He was indeed made impotent in its larger sense. 10 years ago, I learned he is still in the Abzu, so I would assume nothing has changed. I suspect this is what my source meant when he talked about taking away Enki's creative abilities. He no longer has access to human bodies, therefore he is completely dependent on his human minions, who do his bidding here on Earth's surface. So what about the rest of the invaders, E-G, Marduk, Ereshkigal, and the Khan kings? Do they have their creative abilities intact? Yes and no. None of them is spirited, except Ereshkigal. I would suggest being the lowest manifestation of Sophia. But if so, she is so far gone that she is mentally and emotionally completely disconnected from it, not being spirited. They cannot create with her, they cannot create with their minds, so they are dependent on technology to create. So now we get a deeper understanding of all the technology in this world. In other words, they take what was already created by spirited beings, such as the Queen and by us, distort it with technology, and create bad copies of something that already exists in near perfection. However, with Enki, who is the true engineer, being stuck in the Apsu, the rest of the invaders were suddenly without the presence of their brilliant leader. It is Enki who has the greatest knowledge in Orion technology. He is the technical expert. However, I have reasons to believe it is not Enki who is giving you humankind the technology slash our technology, between quotation marks, I would say, as previously believed. And I will explain later why this is. However, Isis is also a genetic scientist, and it seems to me the Khan Kings now use her knowledge to build metaverse and the singularity. From having learned more about Isis through this research, I believe she does not, not want the singularity, but she has been forced by Marduk to give him the technology needed because Marduk wants to succeed this singularity and thus metaverse for his own benefit and purposes, not ours. Through Tesla and other geniuses, he, Marduk, has thus let this information channel through them so our human scientists can learn Orion technology such as computer science and advanced artificial intelligence, and all shall be used in an evil way, which is already going on because the technology is working as a weapon against us human souls. After Prince Enlil castrated Enki a few thousand years ago, Marduk became the Lord of Earth, so we could say Marduk took on the title as Enki. He has been in charge here on Earth ever since, and this doesn't mean Enki is completely handicapped in the abyss. It is true he currently cannot move into our dimension, but being a souled entity, he can still split his soul fires and send them off into our realm, and thus communicate with his minions on earth, his proxies, whom we often call the global elite. The question is how many of them are still loyal to him. This book will try to answer that question. Marduk had no second thoughts. He enthusiastically raped Isis and created his own bloodline. As we can see, they used, both Enki as well as Marduk, used, abused, and misused Isis as a breeder for the two patriarchs, who both wanted to make sure they had their own pure bloodline to incarnate into. So again, as we can see, they used, misused, abused Isis as a breeder for the two patriarchs who both wanted to make sure they had their own pure bloodline to incarnate into. So now we come to the last piece of this uh, amazing, interesting chapter of this book, The Story of Isis and the War on Bloodlines. I highly recommend you to read this book yourself. Isis at Lake Baikal. What is tricky about putting these stories together is the timeline. When did what happen? We know that Isis, between quotation marks, helped both Enki and Marduk to create new bloodlines. And we also know that Enki gave Isis the tablets of destiny, the MEs, when he was drunk, not knowing what he was doing, because Enki loved liquor and alcoholic beverages. And when Enki woke up from his drunkenness, he noticed the MEs were gone, and he desperately wanted them back. So he searched for Isis everywhere, but could not find her. Yet they failed to search for her at Lake Baikal, where Isis, spent her time creating a new bloodline, free from the two rapists' DNA. She wanted to repent and honor her father, Prince Enlil/Ninurta, and create a branch of humans that had a mix of Isis and Ninurta DNA. She wanted nothing more to do with Enki and Marduk. Thus she created the Isis bloodline, the red-haired ladies of fire. Although this bloodline was created at Lake Baikal at some point later, many of these people migrated and ended up in today's Ireland and Scotland, both having an established red-haired populations. There is a reason the bloodline moved to Europe, which we shall discuss later, and is also has to do with the English royals, and thus also with the story about Princess Diana. As we know, these between quotation marks, redheads are often fiery. Isis and Ninurta's blood run through their veins, although it has been diluted since then, unfortunately. It is uncertain when Isis escaped with the MEs because it had to have happened before Enlil threw Enki into the pit. The only thing that makes sense to me with the limited information I have about that part of the timeline is that Isis ran away with the MEs, so the tablets of destiny, before Enki went to war in the Rigel star system, where his brother confronted him because Enki was still on Earth. Hence it probably happened shortly before 2024 BCE, when Enki disappeared from Earth and never returned. With the Tablets of Destiny /MEs comprising instruction to Orion technology, she, Isis, ran off and created her new bloodline. After Enki was eliminated, Marduk must have found her and kept her under surveillance. So this means Isis is also trapped, just like the rest of us humans are. Um, so Marduk must have found her and kept her under surveillance. After that, the goddess, as Isis, almost completely escaped from history. But she didn't disappear. She went silent, but she was not inactive. She just hid her identity. My records of Isis, as far as the Wes Penre papers goes, more or less ended with her creating her bloodline, but there is so much more to the story that has come to light recently, since I have reviewed old information, done more research, and then connected the dots. It ties in with the story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, which should not come as a surprise to most readers. That story is not new, per se, but I strongly argue that all these stories are somewhat incorrect because a big, crucial piece of information has been missing and probably deliberately being taken out, so that we do not get to know something, yeah, and or being highly misunderstood. When I connected the dots recently, things made so much more sense to me. It shone a light on one of the greatest mysteries in human history, something that has been debated for millennia. This brings us to Isis, Yeshua or Jesus, and the Knights Templar. And I will go through all this too, because the next chapter is titled, Was There a Real Jesus? So the next time I will go into that. That is the second chapter of this book. Again, I would highly recommend you to buy this book yourself and start reading it yourselves too. All right, this was the second part of chapter 1 of this book, which is written by Wes Penre. I wish you all a beautiful day, and thank you so much for listening along, and share these videos with other people, and let us listen to a beautiful piece of music, Echoes from the Mountains, created by Ben Sound. And again, I wish you a beautiful day filled with a lot of love, joy, wisdom, truth, knowledge, and a lot of pure revelations, all coming from your own spirit and DNA. See you next time with another live book reading from this book, The Story of Isis. All right. See you next time.